My name is Nicole. I'm 27 years old, and I am going to tell you about my most craziest stalker experience that not only affected me, but also my whole family. Before I go into what led up to it, I may have to talk about some background story first. Most people don't believe that girls can be gamers, but there is true we can, and I'm in fact one of them. I have actually been playing games with my brother, my big brother Ryan, since we were kids. We used to play Super Mario, Donkey Kong, or even other classical Nintendo, Sega move games that was out there. But back in 2004, when I was 14, when World of Warcraft was officially released, I was really surprised when I first saw this game on TV as current commercial. I was really surprised of the graphic. It was almost like real like. And sometimes afterwards, my brother managed to get a copy of this game, and he loved it himself. And he told me why not to give it a try. And even at the beginning, I was very hesitating to try it. But since he had tried to convince me to play other games when we were younger then, so I gave it a try and I loved it. Even though in the beginning I was very bad at it, but my brother told me what to do and how the things operate. And after that, I get the hang of it. But after about almost like 6 months to almost a year after I have been playing the game, I actually was approached by other male players, like the guys in their 20s and their 30s. They were all surprised I was actually a girl gamer. There were some guys that were actually very polite. I joined sometimes in their raiding parties, but there were some guys who told me that I shouldn't be gaming at all. I should play things with girls like makeup or dating boys, but not being a gamer. So I just told them off and blocked them, which is ignore them. And no, this is not one of those guys that was eventually to be in my stalker. But those guys were a little bit creepy, but this guy was way much crazier than that guys. This actually happened when I was 22 years old during my second year of college. One evening, I was playing this game, World of Warcraft, one of my favorites, in fact. I just had left a raiding party with some other friends who had just logged off, but since I was had 1 other hour before I went to bed, I was approached by this player by the name Warrior Man 90. He was actually very polite. He asked me if I wanted to join his hunting party before I had to go to bed, though, even he wasn't aware of that. So I said, yeah, why not? And then he started asking me some questions like how long I've been playing this game, and I told him that I have been playing this game since I was like 14. And he was like, wow, that is quite a long time actually. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I love this game. They've actually, thanks to my big brother Ryan, who has told me how this game worked, and I was very much into it. And he told me that he was also been playing this game for another for about a few years. And it was like another friend of his actually told him about it. And he liked my name, Elf Queen 90. And he asked about how I came up with this name. And I said, well, I like the elves, and I have seen the Lord of the Rings movies, and especially the elves in those. And ever since then, I love the elves. And I said, that's just not a bad choice. And I asked about his name. Well, he saw himself as a warrior, maybe not in real life, but he felt like he was a big fighting warrior. He would try to do anything, and that's understandable. I mean, he did choose a character that was pretty looks like being a warrior. But after about an hour, I told him I had to go to bed since I have classes in the early morning. Since I did mention him that I was in college at the time, and he accepted it. But before I logged off, he asked me if we could maybe be friends on the game, so that we can play more times together. And since he had always been polite and not to be like creep to me, I actually said yes. And wow, I really regret I ever did that. But even though in the beginning, this Warrior Man 90. He was very polite, very friendly, very kind, even made some either good or bad jokes during the games, but I didn't mind. So the next day, I was actually in a class and I had almost forgot about the new player. But in the evening, I decided to play a few hours of those World of Warcraft after I had done some homeworks. And he was actually just asking me how my day had been since he knew I was in college. And I told him, yeah, the classes were a little bit boring, but I so far liked being in college. I had a lot of friends and all that, but I always look forward to go back to my dorm room to play games or just hang out with my friends otherwise. And he asked me if I want to be part of a small hunting party again with him, which I didn't mind. And then we started just playing a game, and he started asking me just curious questions like what my real name were, and I told him, and he said his name was Derek. And he asked me where I'm from, since he knew that I'm from was the United States. I was actually I was not comfortable to mention exactly which town was living in, but he mentioned that he was from Oregon himself, and I told him I was from Wisconsin. And he said, "Wow, that's very far away from us, between us." I laughed and said, "Yeah, do you live on the West Coast?" And I was like, "Middle of nowhere," and he laughed about it. And he actually just asked me if I what I like to do for hobbies, and I told some of them. And before I had to go again, he asked me if I would be available to play the game tomorrow. And I said that depends if I didn't have some school assignments or any homeworks. But I said right now that I would really apologize right now if I wouldn't been able to see him otherwise. And he said that. And 2 days later, in fact, I haven't been on the game. I have been so occupied with a lot of schoolwork and my part-time job. And on the second day evening, when I went back to my dorm room, I was so tired. But I decided to play maybe just 1 or 2 hours of World of Warcraft, just to relax a bit. And the first thing I did when I got back on, I saw that Derek was already playing a game, and when he noticed me, he asked me where I had been. It has been 2 days since saw me. And I explained I had my part-time job and I have a lot of been occupied by schoolwork, and that's something he understood. And we start playing more about the games, and he actually start still asking me some questions like what I like to do otherwise when I'm not with my friends or if I'm not playing games, what type of movies I like otherwise, which is a quite harmless questions. And I answer them, and I have the same thing. And even though we seems to have a few things in common, but when he asked me if I was seeing any someone, and when I said no, and I said I wasn't really into looking for a relationship at the time because I was already being focused on my work and school, and I may have perhaps looking for a dating someone after college, but I wasn't really sure. And and but then he asked me if I would consider a long distance relationship with someone, and I said, well, I might have been, but I wasn't really sure about it since I did briefly mention to him that I once back in high school I did had a boyfriend, but only for maybe almost 6 months until I find out he has been cheating on me with another girl, and he said that was terrible to hear. Yeah, but I had moved on. That was high school. Now I'm in college. I'm more mature and not more careful what happens, and also been trying to be aware of signs of my boyfriend would be doing anything like that. But since he asked me again if I would consider being dating someone over online, for example, I was really started doing questioning myself why he's asking me these kind of questions. But I said no, maybe, but I actually never been thought about it. But like I said, I'm trying to focus mostly on my part-time job and my schoolwork. And since he then asked me if I would considered maybe do a FaceTime with him sometimes. That was actually not as a bad thing to ask because I was actually being curious to know how he looks like. So I told him, yeah, I mean, I've been able to do so on Friday since I only have like a half of a work day, the school work. And he said, sure, the same time. And I said yes, and then I had to go to bed. So on Friday, I was actually looking forward to see how his this Derek guy looks like. And he actually had added me on Facebook at the time, and I didn't mind it. And when we first FaceTime, I was blown. He was quite handsome, brunette, brown eyes, and he was very fit for his age. He was only like a few years younger, but I was really surprised though. I loved it. Well, not say love, but I actually told him that he was handsome. That made him laugh a little bit. Said, yeah, many girls says that." But then I just asked him, "So, how has his days been so far?" He said that it has been good, and he asked me if I had any plans for the winter holiday. Since winter holiday was actually only a few weeks away, and I told him, yeah, actually, I'm going to spend time with my family. So I told him I might not be able to join the game so often as I usually do. And he understood because he was going to celebrate with his family this Christmas. So, but I said, well, I might see you on in a game, maybe. I wouldn't even make any promise though. But as the weeks on went on, and sure enough, college was closed for the winter holiday, I went home. I was really happy to see my family again, especially my big brother. I actually mentioned to my brother about this Dare guy on this game, and he was a little bit surprised, but he's like, "Oh, you're talking to your boyfriend?" He laughed. "No, he's not my boyfriend," I told him. He's just a friend that I have been playing on this World of Warcraft. And on the day Christmas, though, well, the day before Christmas, in the evening, I was actually in my room playing games, and Derek was also online. He was actually happy to see me, and he just asked me how my family been, and suddenly this suddenly outburst happened with my brother just walked in and said, "Hey, cutie, do you want some, eggnog or something like that?" And I said, "Yeah, can you give me some?" And after he left, this Derek was silent for a moment, like, "Wait, was that your boyfriend? I thought you told me you weren't dating." I was like a bit surprised or shocked about that he had this outburst. And I said, no, that was not my boyfriend. That was actually my big brother Ryan. Um, he is a little bit, how to say, a little bit drunk. He has been drinking a little bit too much beer. Oh, he said. Yeah, I'm sorry. I should mention that. Well, I did mention to him before. I had a big brother. But Derek had never actually heard my brother's voice, so I can understand why he assumed this, but at the same time, having that outburst of me having a boyfriend was a bit unexpected though. But that was only getting worse because shortly afterwards, or like after New Year's Eve and I was back in college, Derek and I start playing a game as normal, but he went back to ask me if I would still consider to have a boyfriend. And I said, maybe, I'm really not sure. But then he asked me if I would be considered be his girlfriend. He hasn't even had any attention or even had hinted that he liked me more as a friend. And I said, I'm afraid I had to say no, Derek. I mean, you're handsome enough, but it is this long distance and we wouldn't be able to see each other so often because considered I had all this schoolwork and part-time job, and he understood and he dropped the question. But unfortunately, that was not the first time he continued, because for the next several weeks, he'd always made a hint or call me some cute pet names like cutie, babe, baby, honey, sweetheart, all those kind of normal things what anyone you say when you're in a relationship. And he actually said to some of his friends that he actually had this cute girlfriend. And when one of those guys approached me, just himself, and asked me if this is true, me that me and Derek are dating, I was like, no, we're not dating. He's just a friend of mine. And I asked him what he meant by that. Turns out Derek had been telling his friends for the past 2 weeks that me and Derek was in this serious long term, this serious relationship with each other for the past few weeks, ever since before, just around the time of Christmas. I was like dumbfounded. How would he even commit to saying like that when that's not even true? Because I begged his friend to inform this, and I told him not to mention this to Derek because I want to confront himself myself, and he understood. When Derek came online, I was just acting normal at first, but when I asked him if you had told your friend something in particular for the past few weeks, and he tried to act dumb that he had no idea what I was talking about. When I told him calmly that one of your friends had actually told me that you had told them that we are in a serious relationship, right? And which Derek is not true. I mean, I understand you're handsome, but you have to get understand. I'm not interested in you in such a way. So you understand that. I don't want to be losing you as a friend. I'm seeing you only as a friend. And he actually got a little bit upset. I mean, come on, Nicole. I mean, I am handsome. You told me that. You're very beautiful. I don't understand why you can't just give me a chance. I understand it's a long distance. I can try to move back. I can try to move closer to you. So we can be together. That was a little bit creepy itself. And instead, I told Derek that, no, Derek, that is creepy. And I honestly thought I would never even consider to be with you like now because how you've been acting. I'm sorry, but I can only see you as a friend, and for that I may have to think. I think maybe we should take a break from talking for each other. But no, then I said no and I logged off. So for the rest of the next couple of weeks, didn't went back to this game because I need some time for myself and focus on life. But after almost like 3 weeks, I went back to the game. I saw that I didn't have any messages from Derek for those 3 weeks, except for just one. That he said, I'm sorry, I like you, and I understand if you want to be friends, and I would like to try that. So when he came back online, he acted that he has was very had this remorse. But it didn't take long for his behavior to come back when he started asking me if I were to have the chance to maybe consider to be meeting up with him for one day for coffee or something, if I would show up in Oregon or if he would end up in my hometown. Even though considering that I haven't mentioned him my hometown's name, only that I live somewhere in Wisconsin. That's it. But I told him, maybe, okay? But right now, I just want to focus on my studies and be at my job. And and you should do the same thing. But it turns out that Derek wasn't working at all. That he had no work, and he was living with his parents' basement for just a temporarily. He said, and I said I might not be able to talk to you for the next couple of days because I had this big test coming up and I need to be focused on it. And it wasn't a lie, because even after a few days when I was studying it and I passed the test, I came back to the game and I was like, I was then approached by Derek. And he's like, how you been ignoring my questions, my messages? I was like dumbfounded. For first, Derek, I did tell you I was having been busy for the next few days because I was working for an upcoming test. That's a lie. You're avoiding me because I have confessed my feelings for you. And I was done with it. Derek, there's no way such that is. I'm once told you was it true? No, you're lying. There's not a guy at Easter, isn't it? And I said, fine. I'm not going to talk to you right now because I'm not in the mood for that. And I logged off. I stayed away from the game for a couple of days because Derek's behavior started getting on my nerve. But even though I haven't mentioned this to anyone, not even my big brother Ryan, because Ryan was really much protective of his younger sister. Even when I was younger, when I was bullied back in college or in high school. But after a few days, I went back to the game. But Derek wasn't even online. So I did mine. I started playing with the other guys and other girls, players, and all friends. But when Derek came online, he started accusing me of being cheating on him. I was like dumbfounded. And I was like, Ryan, Derek, we aren't even together. So why are you assuming me being cheating on you? We'll of course be together. We have been together since Christmas. This again, I thought. He couldn't get this understand. So I told him once in the final time, Derek, there is nothing between us. No romantic involvement. So you can't understand that. If you keep doing this, I don't even want to talk to you if you can't get it. And then he was silent. And then he started screaming, calling me his own words I prefer not to be mentioning here. And I said, Derek, that's fine. Don't talk to me anymore. After that, I blocked him and I removed him from my friends list. And of course, he tried to talk to me through his friends, like saying he was sorry, he didn't meant it, he was drunk with playing. But that was not the truth because I could hear he was not even drunk at all. But I just ignored it. But during this time when I was ignoring him, I actually had started feeling feelings for another guy by the name Eli. Eli was actually just only 1 year younger than myself, and he was very unlike Derek. He was very polite, very kind, very generous. We started dating, and after a few weeks, I actually have been officially, and I actually have FaceTime with me and Eli with my family, and they were really happy to find that I found a guy that I could perhaps settle down with. But Derek, he wasn't even aware of this at the time because I haven't been playing with this game for much as since I've been focused more on schoolwork and Eli. But and since he was actually a friend of mine on Facebook, but I had made my account private. But somehow, after a while, when I posted a picture with me and Eli, when he kissing him on the cheek, and I said in a comment in a section like said, I am so in love with my beloved boyfriend Eli. And from that moment, I knew that Derek would finally see this. And I was right. Because one day when I was in college at the evening, I just logged in to play some World of Warcraft just before bed, and Eli's character showed up and he demanded to talk to me. And even though despite I didn't want to talk to him, but I did. And I should not. Because he confessed his dying love for me and he said I should not be with this Eli character because he is obsessive of me. He would be cheating on me when he get the first chance, and he's a cheater. He's a liar. He's a bad boyfriend. But I then flipped off and I told Derek, Derek, Eli has been complete honest. He has played a completely opposite from you, and for that, this is my final saying to you leave me alone. And I blocked him once again and left the game. And I thought that would be the final scene from him ever. And boy, I was way off from that one though. Because even a few days later, when I was at during lunch break at college, my phone started ringing. And I wasn't expecting a phone call from anyone though. And it was actually one unknown call number. And I didn't even recognize the number, so I said, "Hello?" And this is something since it has been a while since I don't remember exactly what the caller said, but I tried to remember what this caller said, and it was actually a male voice, but at first I didn't recognize them, so I asked, "Who is this? And how did you get this number?" And it said, "You gave it to me." And I asked myself, who can this be? Probably my brother playing a prank on me or something. And I asked, "Ryan, is this you?" But he said, "No, this is Derek. I can see you." I was like, "Derek? How did you even get this number?" And I know for sure I didn't give you a number. And he said, "Yes, you did, in the game." And I actually did. I remember that now. But still, "Derek, I told you to leave me alone." And then I was about to hang up the call, and he said, "I can see you at college under a tree." And he was right. I was sitting under a tree at the college after lunch break. "I can see you, and I need to talk to you." And that meant he had been traveling from Oregon to Wisconsin to my particular college to find me. But here's the thing, I didn't even mention exactly which college I went to. That was another thing I didn't want to give out. Because I want to have some privacy of when I play games. But somehow he had been tracking me down. And as I was looking around, "You can't see me, but I can see you." "Right, Derek? Okay, okay. I will meet you, but in a cafe nearby. After school, at 3 p.m.? He said fine, and he will be there. So, even at 3 p.m., I told Derek that I would be there. And after that, I actually went back to to my room, and on the way, I actually called Eli. And he was also during lunch break, and I told him that my crazy stalker, or this obsessive guy from the game, which I had told Eli about, and he was like, "Okay, I will go with you." "No, can you be nearby just in case if something would happen?" "Of course," he said. And at 3 p.m., I went to this cafe, and sure enough, Eli was already waiting in a distance behind on the seat on the side of the street. But when I got to this cafe, Derek was already there waiting. He had already ordered himself a coffee. I sat down and I felt nervous, but he played off as was happy to see me. "So there, sweetheart. It's finally to see you again." "And please, Derek, I'm not your sweetheart. I'm already being a get together with someone else. I told you about it." "Huh. Not if it was I'm from done with him." "And you expected me to be with you after if you do something to Eli? Don't think about it." But he didn't know. Eli was actually a black belt in Taekwondo and a martial art. And I never mentioned that to Derek because it was not his business, but now I have at least one ace in the rock an ace in my sleeve and this time. But we start talking normally as before, and I asked him how he even found exactly where my college was located. I never mentioned the name of the town or the name of this college. And since it's a big state, and there are like dozens, maybe hundreds of colleges in the state itself alone, and he said just I just guessed. And then I thought, if he guessed that one, he probably knew what my family. And as he could see my mind, and your parents look very happily together today. And your brother, well, I didn't expect him to be that tall. My brother was about 6'2", and he was right. My brother was the tallest in the family, even my own dad. "Have you been at my street?" He nodded and said, "I would do anything to be with you, honey. Please, leave me alone, Derek." This is my final meeting with you ever. You understand that? If you don't understand, leave me alone. I will call the police on you. As they won't even do anything. I haven't done anything. You have been stalking me. And there were people in there hearing this. And it's like, please calm down. Try to be a little bit calmer. And talk a little bit not so loud. Honey, he tried to act if he was my boyfriend or something. You're not my boyfriend. And I don't want to see you or talk to you. Bye. And I turned around and walked away. But the last I remember, he grabbed me by my hair and said, "You will be mine, no matter what." But there were some people in there grabbing him from behind to stop him. And I actually called the police, and they actually escorted him out from the cafe, and I managed to get a restraining order against him after some reason. But I thought that was the final. But boy, I was wrong. I was wrong on that one. Because the next few days, I didn't receive any calls or any text from Derek or even message on the game. But I asked some of his friends if they had heard anything about him. But at least one of them had told me that he had returned home, but he was not happy because having the police call on him was the last straw the last wrong thing to do. But his friends actually was on my side because they could see I was really distraught, how I was stressed about all this, and having this guy being not so obsessed stalker type of guy that I couldn't understand it. So his friends actually have blocked him on the game, except for one, who actually decided to be there as like a secret spy, if you can call it. And I thanked him for that. But during the summer break, that next a few months later, I was actually decided to go home, and Eli decided to go with me to spend some time during summer, at least part of the summer break. And during those first few weeks, I had a good time. We went often to the movies or something. But it happened that I did notice this car driving around, almost following us, even not every single time, but I thought maybe I was stalked by someone, maybe it was Derek. I mentioned it to Eli and said, "Don't worry, it's probably someone else who is lost or something." He might be right because I didn't see the car all the time, only like a few times. But I did see that someone was wearing his sunglasses and hoodie and talk, just looking around the corner or from the side of the street. And I actually saw this particular person outside my parents' home, and I was worried if this could be Derek. After all, if he had only seen where my parents live and have one where I went to college, and would not been wrong hesitation that he could be stalking me there again. But shortly after that, Eli went back to his hometown to spend time with his family for the rest of the summer break. Even though we did play talk on the FaceTime or on the phone call almost every day, Derek somehow had showed up again. Because one evening, when it was just me, myself at home, there was a knock on the door. I was waiting for a pizza maybe. I had ordered pizza, but it wasn't the pizza delivered. Derek? You are supposed to be stay away from me. You have this restraining order against you. And that's gonna stop me, he says something of those words. You belong to me. You're just gonna be my wife, having our 5 kids together. I was dumbfounded. And before he could say anything, I closed the door, locked it, and said, "I'm calling the police on you not right now." And he laughed and just walked off. Later, there was another knock on the door. I jumped up, looked in the peephole. It was the pizza delivery this time. I thanked the guy, paid him, and walked in back indoors, locked the door, back doors, and all the windows. Rest of that night, I had a knife next to my bed just in case if something would happen. But when I was out with my brother that day, something did happen. My mom had actually called me and told me there was this guy who was there to look for me, and I asked who. He said his name was Derek, Mom, I told her, next time when this guy do show up, please call the police immediately. And she asked why. I will tell you as soon as I get home. But when I did get home with Ryan, Derek was already indoors. He actually had been asked to be let in because he said he was a friend of mine and that we know each other for a while. And he was sitting on the couch with my mom and dad, and they were just talking. And I said, Mom, Dad, we're home. We're in here, honey, my mom said. And I walked in, and I was like, Derek? And my parents like surprised to see that I actually recognize him. So you do recognize your friend, the mom said with a smile. Mom, Dad, do you actually been informed about a guy that had been stalking me and that I have a restraining order against him? But I actually forgot to mention this guy's name. Mom, Dad, this is the guy that had been stalking me. Both my parents looked at me confused and looked at the guy. What do you mean? My mom said. Mom, you remember the guy I told you about? But then Derek stood up and just walked out the side and said, You are going with me. If you don't, and I will kill your parents right in front of you. And he was pointing his handgun towards my parents. I was so scared. My parents was dumbfounded. They didn't even have noticed that he had a handgun in his hoodie, a smaller one, in fact. But Derek didn't know. My brother, the 6'2" tall guy, was sneaking up behind from this other room, and he managed to knock the weapon out of his hand and took him in chokehold and said, Mom, call the police right now. My brother was not the one the type of guy you want to play or mess around with. He was very defensive, even when it comes to me or my family. My mom was terrified, but my dad called the police and they actually eventually came and arrested him. It turns out he actually had been planning for this for a while because they found his car along the street contained letters and even like a do list like try to get in, threaten by the parents so that I will go with him voluntarily, otherwise I'll be killing the parents. And he was arrested, charged for murder attempt and stalking and breaking this restraining order. I want to get much into this legal trial procedures of talking. It's a lot much of this is kind of blur. But I testified in court telling that he had been doing, and he tried to defend himself like that. We were a secret couple, but I was acting out as I was not in love with him. And even though the jury itself didn't believe any of the stories, and they found him guilty, he was actually sent back to Oregon. And surprising enough, this is not his first time, it turns out. He had been doing this two times with other girls online, but also one a local where he's from. He was arrested once for that, and he was put in jail for, surprising enough, for life, for out being life of parole. I was very happy. But even only like a year after that I was like done with college. I was finished with it, and but shortly after I finished college, I received a letter from the jail from Oregon from Derek. He demanded me to have been helping so that he could leave jail, but I was like, nope, I'm not going to do anything. In fact, I did wrote back telling him I don't want to have any sort of contact with you ever again. And I'm actually like lie at you for or behind bars. That's because you have that is your natural environment and you need to stay. And if you have been the best, forget about me. And in fact, I told him I was already engaged with Eli, which wasn't a lie because Eli proposed to me just before I finished college, and I was happy about it. We were planning to get married after he finished college himself. Would be like after another year. And that was the last time I ever heard from him. And that was the fact. After shortly that Eli did finish college, we had this small, close wedding with close family and friends. I could understand my parents was terrified because my mom was so frightened. She had nightmares that this guy would show up in the middle of the night and they killed her and my dad and my brother and dragged me by my hair to his trunk of his car and drove off. And my dad, he after this got a gun himself in order to protect his family. My brother, he encouraged me and including Eli to do some taekwondo training just in order to defend myself. And I don't have to say I didn't hesitate at all. And now right now, I'm actually I think it was about I just passed the brown belt in taekwondo, which is a good start. I'm trying to be a black belt like Eli, and let's say I'm not giving up. But I also want to think to say that most other girls who end up in a such kind of relationship with a guy like this or having a stalker, please don't hesitate to tell anyone if it's a friend, family member, or a teacher. Because if you don't tell anyone, this could have been a lot worse. If I had even told my brother or my parents about this guy, or even Eli, who knows what the outcome could have been? He could have been dragging me to his car. If my brother wasn't even with me that day, it's not very likely I wouldn't be right here, right now, telling this story. I am actually very surprised that my brother was with me because to that I am very, very grateful. And for Derek, the stalker, obsessed stalker, I never want to see or hear you again. So for God's sake, Derek, stay behind bars for the rest of your life because the world is safer without you on the streets. So for that, I'm very grateful. So any other girls or in this case guys, if you have a stalker, always remember the worst rule. Speak out, telling someone. Because if I haven't, I wouldn't be in here right now. So I tell the same rule, tell others about it. That is my story about my crazy stalker event. The end.